A commercial flight, a routine journey meant to take passengers safely from one destination to another. The hum of engines, the calm instructions from the flight crew, the trust placed in the hands of the pilots. Aviation is built on precision, professionalism, and above all, safety. But what happens when the very person entrusted with that safety becomes its greatest threat? Not all aviation disasters are the result of mechanical failure, weather, or human error.
Some are far more chilling.
Some are deliberate. A moment where a trusted pilot, sitting in the cockpit, makes a decision that defies all logic, a decision to end not just their own life, but the lives of everyone on board. This is the story of a flight that was moments away from safety. The passengers had no idea that their fate had already been sealed, not by a storm, not by an engine failure, but by the very person who was supposed to protect them. The final minutes of this flight would be unlike any other, filled with confusion, helplessness, and an act so unthinkable that it still haunts the world of aviation. The flight had been uneventful. Takeoff was smooth, the aircraft climbed to cruising altitude, and passengers settled in for their journey. For many, this was just another trip, a routine flight home, a business meeting, or a long-awaited vacation. The crew followed procedures with precision, unaware of the dark intentions of the person sitting at the controls. As the aircraft approached its final descent, the atmosphere remained calm. The destination airport was in sight, the runway ready for touchdown. But then, something changed. A decision was made, one that no training manual, no safety briefing, no emergency procedure could counter. The first sign of trouble was subtle. A deviation from the expected flight path. Air traffic controllers noticed the descent was too rapid, but there was no distress call. No sign of a technical issue. Just silence. The co-pilot, who had left the cockpit moments earlier, now found himself locked out. The door, reinforced to prevent hijackings, was now a prison separating him from the controls. He knocked. No response. He knocked again, harder. The passengers, oblivious to the crisis unfolding, continued to sit in their seats, unaware that their time was running out. The aircraft continued its descent, too fast, too soon. Inside the cockpit, the pilot remained silent. No communication with the cabin crew. No response to repeated calls from air traffic control. The co-pilot, now desperate, pounded on the door, shouting, pleading. But the reinforced barrier would not budge. The only person in control of the aircraft had already made their decision. The passengers now felt the rapid descent. Some looked out the windows, seeing the ground rushing toward them far sooner than expected. Confusion turned into concern, then panic. Flight attendants, now realizing something was terribly wrong, tried to maintain calm. But there was nothing they could do. The final moments were filled with chaos, alarms blaring, passengers bracing for impact, voices filled with fear. And then, in an instant, everything ended. The aircraft, just minutes from a safe landing, slammed into the ground with devastating force. No chance for survival. No hope for escape. The world would soon learn the truth. The investigation would reveal the horrifying reality that this was not an accident. The black box recordings would expose the chilling silence in the cockpit, the desperate attempts of the locked-out co-pilot, the final moments of a doomed flight. The pilot, entrusted with the lives of everyone on board, had made an unthinkable choice. But the question remained, why? What could drive a pilot, someone who had trained for years, someone who had sworn to protect passengers, to carry out such an act? The answers are never simple. Personal struggles, psychological battles hidden from view, secrets buried beneath a professional facade. Sometimes, the warning signs are there, subtle changes in behavior, a history of distress. Other times, there is nothing. No indication that a routine flight would become a tragedy. This was not the first time. It was not the only time. History holds other stories of deliberate crashes, of pilots who turn their aircraft into weapons of destruction. Each case leaves behind a trail of unanswered questions, of families shattered, of an industry forced to confront the terrifying reality that no security measure, no training program, No psychological screening can completely eliminate the risks that lie within the human mind. Aviation authorities have since implemented stricter policies, ensuring that no pilot is ever alone in the cockpit. Psychological evaluations have become more rigorous. But despite these changes, the fear lingers. How do you predict the unpredictable? How do you protect against a threat that hides behind experience, professionalism, and trust? For the passengers on that flight, there was no warning, no way to know that the journey they embarked on would be their last. They placed their faith in the system, in the pilots, in the belief that every flight is meant to land safely. And yet, in those final moments, that trust was shattered. The wreckage of that flight serves as a permanent scar, a reminder that sometimes the greatest danger is not from the skies, but from the very hands that are meant to guide us safely through them.